fathers, grandfathers, uncles, they were not better providers than men are today. They just lived in a time where life was a lot easier. And I'm gonna break this down because I hate to see people comparing the two without giving context. So for context, in 1990, the average mortgage payment in America was $650. Today, the average monthly mortgage payment is $2,500. That's almost a 4x. The average rent price in America in 1990, it was $370. The average rent price today is $2,000. That's a 5x. The average home price in 1990 was $120,000. The average home price today is $420,000. That's 3.5 times more. The average car payment with insurance in 1990 was $230. The average car payment with insurance today is $730. That's a 3x. Meanwhile, the average income in 1990 was $30,000. Today, the average income is $55,000. That's not even a 2x. It hasn't even the average income hasn't even doubled, and that's in 35 years. In 1990, on average, people were paid $2,500 a month. Today, the average person gets around $4,200 a month. So once again, that number hasn't even doubled. The average minimum wage in 1990 was $4. The average minimum wage today is $7.25. Once again, it hasn't doubled. So comparing somebody today to somebody in the past is like comparing to someone playing a video game on Hall of Fame to somebody that's playing a game on easy mode with the sliders up. So there's really no comparison, but people, they really lack understanding of this basic thing. And I know a lot of people, they're going to say, well, they just need to leave their jobs, find better jobs, and make more money. And I agree with that largely. I do think people need to up their skill sets so they could be better and bigger earners. At the same time, people say those things without understanding how the economy and how ecosystems work. These jobs that people down talk and consider low wages, these jobs are what makes the country go round. How you get your food, the clothes that's on your back, the building you live in, the people that's teaching your kids, the cars we driving.
All right, I'm gonna cut my man short because I know you ready to run. You ready to run off. All right. So we into the second one. My man is saying that guys back then, and I know he gave some stats, but he's saying guys back then were not better providers than the guys today. So I gotta see what y'all say on this. Coco, I see you came straight off beatboxing. You want to? Okay. So I'm gonna let Coco go. Okay, go ahead, Coco. Then I'm gonna come to beatbox. You want to say something?
Listen. I mean, this is not meant to be offensive, but is he a Gen Zer? Because I kind of get tired of this particular argument. Like, I'm a millennial as well, except I'm an older millennial. I'm an early 80s millennial, right? So I look at this and I go, this is such a tired argument, and it's completely irrelevant. It's irrelevant because he compared the 90s, right? The generation of families that were affording those homes and those cars that he said were so much cheaper than they are now, they were saying the same thing because, once again, that's the cycle. So their parents and grandparents, they could go back and say, oh, they had it so much easier than us because houses were 5 cents then. And, the average, salary was $15,000. And we could keep this argument going every generation over generation because things are going to continue to increase. Right now, we're living in a time where these are some of the most aggressive inflation stats that we've seen in a long time, right? So I will give him that. This is definitely economically, this is a tough economical environment for us to be in. But I think comparing it to what was then is not really a true picture because that was a lot of money for them. If you're saying that the average income was $30,000, but then you ran down all of that money they have to pay out. You ran down, the mortgage prices being around what do you say, $600 or something like that. And then you ran down, a car note of $200 something, and you ran these things down, but you just said the average household income was $30,000. That's gross. That's not net. So it's like you're making. Do you understand what you're saying? Basically, they weren't making a ton of money. They weren't, right? So $600 to you today doesn't sound like a lot of money. You know why? Because you make more. But $600 to someone who makes $30,000 on top of the expenses for raising a family, which you did not mention. Yeah, it probably was difficult for them to provide. The point is, it's always going to be a challenge for men to provide. It's never going to be easy for men to be providers. From my perspective, as a non-male, I think the difference that I would talk about is They just seem to complain less.
Mm.
I see a lot of complaining from the younger generations. And this is not an attack. I'm just speaking on what I see. If we can have younger generations say that generations that came before them had it easy and this and that, and then okay, then I can say that I see a lot of the younger generations complaining. I see a lot of entitlement. I see a lot of now, listen, if the shoe don't fit, don't put it on. But I see a lot of entitlement. I see a lot of, we want our working environments to be what we want them to be. That is something that I feel like the youth that come behind us while they're complaining about us, they don't understand that we had to go through a whole lot for them to be in the position that they're in, to be able to make the kinds of demands that they make. We couldn't make the same kind of demands. We didn't even have the same amount of opportunities. My son, who only has a couple more years in high.
Go ahead, B-Boss. Come on off, man. Get it off your chest, man.
Hey, what's up, guys? How are you doing?
Good. How you doing, man?
Doing good. I'm going to push back. So I'm a younger millennial. I'm close to the Gen Z, right? So, right. I'll give. I'm not going to parrot what the other guys, what the guy in the video said. But listen, I graduated with an economics and political science degree, and also, just to be fair, to let y'all know, my political belief, my political ideals, especially on economics, is just right of Bernie Sanders, right? So I just want to give you the context of where I'm coming from. But listen, one, Coco, you mentioned the entitlement. Well, entitlement doesn't come out of a vacuum. Like the older generations were just as entitled. That's why you have things like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all these things that were created before us, i.e. entitlements. So older generations didn't necessarily work for that and got free passes for certain things. It's harder nowadays. Wages and income hasn't gone with inflation. So you have a big problem where inflation, which is just a natural thing in economics, it just happens, right? People complain about it all the time, but wages have not followed with it. So it's going like this for about 50 to 60 years, and nobody's been. I don't even want to go into the politics stuff because I don't even want to go there. All I'm saying is that this has not been addressed. On top of college, which is a gateway for a lot of people to climb the economic ladder, it's been more and more expensive as well. Like you're paying 10 times more what you would pay. There's so many things going on, and now our generation has to compete with women in the workforce, right? That wasn't really that wasn't as much of a deal back then. So you have more people in the workforce. Oh, and older people aren't dying off the way they used to, right? So you have older people in the workforce who are boomers, who are staying in the workforce, who aren't retiring. You have younger people
working longer.
Working longer. There's younger people who can't get into the jobs that they should. Well, how it used to be. So you have this blog jam. You have a lot of things happening all at one time, right? I'm not complaining about it because it just is what it is, right? And at the end of the day, there's not going to be the same sort of provider role that it used to be in the 90s, right? So sometimes when women complain about, I think it goes back to the last video, where the masculine men who are going to provide. Well, hell, some of y'all are going to be providers, ladies. I mean, it just is what it is. You're the man that you wanted to be. I mean, it is what it is. So, and some of y'all just got to do 50-50. Some of y'all got to do 80-20, whatever. That's again, whole nother conversation. But a lot of my generation and younger are complaining because it seems as though older people are like, well, you just have to suck it up. Every generation has, I guess we can say that we can respect each other's struggle, but everybody's struggle is unique and it's just worse. It just is. So if the older generation wants to say well, you guys are complaining a lot. Well, yeah, to a degree, it's a lot worse. And the older generation, to a degree, made it worse. So what are you going to do to fix it? Or we can fix it, whatever. Like, it just is what it is. So, like I said, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Am I a homeowner? I am. Is my life okay? It is. But for most people I know, most people who are younger millennials can't own a home. That's a way to build wealth. That means a lot of us are going to be stuck not be able to build wealth. There's going to be a lot of my generation who have certain degrees where you could have had a degree back in the day that's basket weaving. You could have gotten like a great job in the government. Can't do that now. You're screwed. So I'm just saying, some people have to work 2 or 3 jobs to just make ends meet. And then you have on the other side, I will give Coco this. You have a lot of people, regardless of the generation, who are in a bunch of debt, who are buying cars they can't afford, who buying houses they really can't afford, who are having children when they're not supposed to have children. So I'm just saying, like, I'm very reasonable. I understand that there's one aspect is hard, but on a other aspect, people just do things that are stupid. And like, hey, well, you kind of put yourself in that economic stronghold. So you can't be like, oh, it's harder, and then say, oh, but I just bought a Mercedes. Well, you're an idiot. So that's your fault. So.
But imagine being a boomer. Imagine being a boomer and not being able to retire. Like you said, they're not retiring. It's because they can't. They can't. So this Social Security that you're talking about, right? Like, I agree. I guess the first people who was able to, I don't know when it first was implemented, so I'm not going to do that with y'all. I'm not going to even try to do that with you guys. But I guess the first people who had the opportunity to collect this said Social Security did definitely benefit off of taxpayers, because they didn't put into it, whatever the case may be. But generations since, we have been paying into this. Imagine being an older millennial and knowing, and I know you guys know this too, it's going to affect you as well, that it's not going to be any for you. It's not going to be any for us. So we're paying into a system we're not even going to be able to benefit from. So imagine being a boomer, though. You're right. They're not retiring because they don't want to. They're not retiring because they can't. So while we were saying, oh, it was so much easier for them, was it really? If you've gotten to this point and you can't even retire respectfully at your age, was it really easy for you? Or were you doing some of the same things that we're saying that young people are doing now? They're in debt, buying cars that they can't afford, homes that they probably couldn't afford, sending their kids to school, but they really couldn't afford it, making that $30,000 a year. They were making the same decisions we're making right now. The economy definitely looked different for them. I'll give you that. But they also was living beyond their means, because like you said yourself, the wages were not comparable to the economy and what we were paying out, right? They never really were. They never are. So in that situation, this is why I go back to respecting each other's struggle, because you guys have a different struggle than the generation before you had. And the generation before them had a completely different struggle than that generation had. We all have something that we're going to have to contend with, generation over generation. And so we look back and we go, well, it's your fault. You did this, you did that. We have no idea what their lived experience was. We had no idea what they had to go through. We have no idea what it felt like for them. We can look back from our Ivy Tower and say, you could have did this differently. And if you would have made this choice, and if you would have made these decisions, we wouldn't be where we are. And I guess I just feel like, why don't we start by examining our choices? Some of y'all going to college. I know y'all want to go. Y'all can't afford it. You shouldn't go. I'm going to say the thing I told y'all, 2025 gloves is coming off. I'm just going to say the thing I'm not supposed to say. Y'all shouldn't have been in college. You couldn't afford it. You couldn't. You probably should have been the one that went to that trade school and got you a skill and then got a job. Because like you said, y'all are going to school and a lot of y'all are getting them basket weaving degrees. And then you leaving with that. And then you can't even get a job in the field that you got the basket weaving degree for. And now degrees aren't even a requirement for a lot of places. But now you're carrying debt. So at some point, we also have to start looking at our own choices and stop blaming everybody else.
What's good? It's your boy Quay Price holding it down for Candid Convos. Man, if you enjoyed this video, man, go check out this next one.